Hey guys, it's me, and today I am here with a new makeup tutorial. And this is going to be an in-depth makeup tutorial, which I haven't done one of these in a very, very long time. I don't remember the last time I did a full-blown in-depth makeup tutorial. I know I've done like little mini tutorials in the past, but I don't know if I've done like an in-depth tutorial where I explain like the methods of my madness. So that is what we're going to be doing today. And also, yes, we're pink. So let's go ahead and pop on into this in-depth makeup tutorial. But before we do so, if you guys are new here to my channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. And also while you're down there, definitely give this video a thumbs up because that'll help me out a lot. All my links are down in the description box below, which are links to my Instagram, Twitter. I think my Tumblr link is still down there. It might still be down there. I don't know. I have been wanting to edit it out. So by the time this video goes up, that Tumblr link might be gone. And then there's also the link to my music channel down in the description box below as well. So yeah, that's everything that's down there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in my brows. I do my brows first just simply because it doesn't take very long for me to do them, and also because my brows don't need that much help. All I mainly do is focus on the tails just to structure the shape a little bit better, because there are some like little strange hairs around the tails. I would tweeze them out, but then my tails would look really, really weird, and we're not trying to go for that type of look. And then I also fill in the front of my brows as well, because there is a lot of sparseness towards the front of my brows. I'm going to be doing this using the NYX Micro Brow Pencil. This is an alright brow pencil. It's not my favorite. I prefer like Brow Wiz by Anastasia over this guy, but I mean, it gets the job done and it's a lot cheaper. I think this brow pencil sells for $10, whereas Brow Wiz is $21, but I got this guy on sale as well, so I saved some money on it. Anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and start filling them in. I always start out at the front of the brow, and I just start lightly going in up front. I don't go in too heavy up front, just simply because I don't want it to go super dark up at the front of the brow. I just want to fill it in enough to where it kind of matches the fullness of the rest of the brow. But as you can probably tell, there's still like a little bit of softness in there. And then I'll run product through the body. And then once I get to the tail, I start filling in a little bit more heavier. As like I mentioned before, I like to make sure to have a very defined tail, or at least try to get some more structure to it. I don't really care about having a strong arch, because I mean, like, how I tweeze my brows, my actual brow tails come down to about right here. And so how I tweeze my brows, I just simply like get rid of like most of like the actual arch. So yeah, I used to go a little bit more straighter across like this, but now I'm starting to like just let there be just a slight angle to the brows. So yeah, but this is what we're going with right now. You could leave it like this, but I always make sure to go in and comb through everything. Using the spoolie at the end of a brow pencil is there to like brush away any excess product and helps to soften up the look. And also it allows you to brush through your brow hairs. So as you can see, it's already looking a lot softer and a lot more natural. But these are the brows when they're done. It's just very soft and natural. This is like an everyday brow type of look. So like if you're someone who doesn't like wearing a whole lot of makeup, this is a very easy type of brow to do, as it just fills in the brows, makes them look a little bit more cleaned up and put together while still looking natural. I'm now going to pop on some moisturizer all over my face. It doesn't really matter what moisturizer I go in with, as a lot of my moisturizers pretty much do the same thing. Is I just use like a regular moisturizer for this. I don't do any like special type of moisturizers. This one that I'm using right now is from Youth to the People. I got this in I think this was from my last Ipsy glam bag that I ever got, because I tried out Ipsy for 3 months, and I know it seems like I'm putting on a lot of moisturizer, which I am, but I have extremely dry skin. So my skin is just going to soak this right on up. So, yeah. But this is from You to the People, and this is the Superfood Air Whip Moisture Cream. So, yeah, this is not a full size. Like I mentioned, I got this in my Ipsy Glam bag, so this is a smaller size. And I do this long before I start putting on my foundation, just so that way the moisturizer has plenty of time to absorb into the skin. Because I don't use primer. I just simply use moisturizer because moisturizer gets the job done for me. And primers, they just do the same exact thing that me using a moisturizer as a base does. So I just use moisturizer. By the time I'm ready to start working on my foundation, the moisturizer would have had plenty of time to sink into the skin and is nice and absorbed and ready for foundation to be placed on top of it. So now I'm going to go ahead and prime my eyes, and I'm going to do that by using the Anastasia eyeshadow primer. This is the mini size, and you get quite a good bit of product in here. It's going to take just a small amount of this primer. It's a very thin consistency. And then I'm going to take this brush here. This is a Real Techniques Luxe Crease brush. It's a densely packed dome brush that is quite small. I'm just going to go in and blend out that primer. I need to lay down a little bit more. So I'll do that in just a moment. I'm just going to blend out what I've already laid down first. I really love using this brush for blending out eyeshadow primer and concealer around the under eye, because the fact that it's so densely packed, it just blends out product really nicely. When it comes to concealer, this guy does a great job at blending out concealer while maintaining that coverage. So I'm just going to take a little bit more. It's probably a little too much, but I'll take the excess and place it onto the other eye if need be. I'm not going to take this onto my under eye. I've noticed that when I put eyeshadow primers on my under eyes, it just looks really dry. And with me having such dry skin, it's just not a good look. Yeah, it will help the eyeshadows to look a lot more smooth and nice at the end of the day, but the skin winds up looking bad though. So, yeah. And this is a bit much, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finger here, and I'm just going to go over everything. And this is going to shear out some of the product a bit, because this base is a little bit on the wetter side. It's not super wet, but it definitely has a lot more moisture than, say, like the Urban Decay Primer Potion. But it's nowhere near as wet as, say, like the P. Louise eyeshadow base. Because the P. Louise eyeshadow base is practically a concealer. Now, if you have a deeper skin tone, I know this primer is very light in color. So if you have a deeper skin tone, what you can actually do to get this to work for you is to mix in a little bit of your concealer in with it to help tone down the brightness of it. Because you don't want it to make your eyes look ashy. I definitely want to try out some other eyeshadow primers that are out on the market. I really want to try out the Fenty one, and I think the Fenty one actually goes on clear, which is why I want to try it out, because it seems interesting to me, because all the primers that I've tried in the past all have like some color to them. Now we're going to move on to eyeshadow. So what we're going to be using today is the Moon Spell palette from Lunar Beauty. This is the holiday palette from 2019, which I do believe this is still available on Lunar Beauty's site, if I'm not mistaken. I checked their site not too long ago and I saw that it was still there. But today we're going to be playing with these greens down here. I'm going to take this fluffy crease brush here, and I'm going to pick up the shade Bonnie, which is a borderline neon green. So for me, since I have hooded eyes, I tend to go higher than the actual crease area, as you can see, because for me, like when you look at my eyes are open, you see that the crease is right in here. The crease is right in here, but since I have hooded lids, when I open up my eye, that crease is hidden. So I actually go above the crease. When I'm applying eyeshadow to the crease, I tilt my head back a little bit, and then I look down into my mirror, and then I place the product where I want it to go. And I'm just going to take this all throughout the crease. And if it gets onto the lid, that's totally fine. Doesn't really matter. This shade is working as our transition shade. If you don't know what a transition shade is a shade that helps out with blending. So you'll lay down a shade that is like in a similar color family, or a shade that'll help blend other shadows on top of it a lot easier, so that we can get a lot more of a seamless blend. Now I'm going to dip into the shade Nancy here, which is like a tealy green shade. I'm going to pick it up on this pinched blending brush here. And I'm going to pop this into the crease as well. I'm using this brush here because I want this to be a little bit more precise with the placement. And this, I'm taking it right at the edge of the crease. And I'm not going to take too much color up into the front. I'm mainly going to focus the color towards the outer portion of the eye. Now you could take this all the way into the inner portion of the eye full of pigment if you want to, but with having hooded eyes, what it's going to do is that it's going to shrink the eye even more, because with doing it just like this, it's adding definition to the eye area. Like when you look forward, you can see how it creates like a shape here and adds definition to the eye there. But if you were to take all that pigment all the way straight through, it's going to deepen it up and make the eyes appear to be even smaller than they are. With laying down this shade, it's going to help out in the long run when it comes time to apply the lid shade, because the lid shade is a similar tone to this. It's just a little bit darker, so it's going to help work as a shade to like help it blend in with that Bonnie shade to help create like a nice gradient between the colors. And then with that brush that I used to apply Bonnie with, I'm just going to go into the crease to help blend things out. And I'm just doing windshield wiper motions, if that means anything to you. I know for some people they like to do like circular motion. I personally don't like going in that type of shape because of my eye shape. If I do like more circular motions, it winds up blowing things out way too much. So just by simply doing windshield wiper motions is enough for me. Now, it's looking like I'm starting to lose a lot of that Bonnie shade a little bit, so I'm going to pick up just a tiny amount on this blending brush here. I'm just going to focus this in the crease, and I'm just very lightly grazing over everything with it. I don't want to apply too much product. I'm just lightly dusting it over. So now I'm going to take the shade Marnie, which is kind of like a blend between like a khaki and an army green. It's a really unique shade. And I'm going to take it on this slightly fluffy shader brush here. And I'm just going to focus this on the outer portion of the eye. And just lightly sweep it in. Notice the movements that I'm doing. I'm like placing it down and then lightly sweeping upwards and away. I'm not sweeping it across, I'm sweeping upwards. This is going to help blend out that shadow without swiping product across the entire lid. It's going to give it a softer blend, because if you were to just simply like swipe it on, you'll wind up applying a little bit too much product and losing control over where you're placing the most amount of product. And also, it'll wind up shearing out product in places where you don't want it to be sheared out. And then with the brush that I use to apply Nancy, I'm just going to go over that. And blend it out. Well, this is my bad eye, so things usually tend to wind up looking just ever so slightly different on this eye. But there's also another reason why things wind up looking slightly different on this eye, and that is because this eye has a different shape to it than this one does. This eye goes more angular slightly, whereas this one comes out more straight. So my eyes tend to look slightly different from one another. and the end result because of it. I'm not going to take this in too far. I'm mainly just focusing this on the outer third of the eye. Since I have hooded eyes, keeping most of the darkness on the outer portion is going to allow the eye to remain more open. As you can see, if I were to take that darkness all the way throughout the crease, it would close things off a lot. And then I'm going to pick up the shade Fiona, which is this gorgeous, like, shimmery black and teal. It's such a gorgeous color. I'm going to take it on this flat shader brush here, and I'm just going to press this on to the rest of the lid. Then I'm going to take that brush that I applied Nancy with. Once again, not taking any extra product. I'm just going to go over that edge just to soften it up. And I'm just going to go over Fiona once again just to build up some more intensity. Especially when it comes to like shimmer shades like this, you don't want to swipe it on because you'll wind up shearing out the product. So by pressing it on and swiping upwards, you're going to maintain better coverage with the shadow. This is the top lid done. It's very smoky, very green, very pretty. Hopefully you guys are seeing this all right. I can't really tell how things are going with the viewfinder because it's still looking a bit dark in the viewfinder. But trust me, if I didn't up the exposure, this is how things would be looking right now. You want to be able to see a damn thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my concealer, and this is the NYX HD concealer, and I use the shade Porcelain, in case anybody is curious. I'm going to take some product here in this inner portion of the eye here, and then I'm going to take some on the outer portion as well. Now this is a method that is being popularized here on YouTube by Robert Welsh. It is not his technique. This is a technique that has been used by professional makeup artists for a very long time. And since he has reach here on YouTube, and since he's always doing it, everybody claims that it's his technique. It's not his technique. It's everybody's technique. And now I'm just going to take that Deluxe crease brush again from earlier, and I'm just going to blend out this concealer. Now, the reason why this is a great concealer technique is because it allows you to get a lot of coverage in the areas where you really need it, which is generally like the front of the eye. And then you place it on the outer portion here so that way you can create better shape with your eyeshadow. So clean up the shape with it, and also take whatever is left on this outer portion here and bring it under as well. Now, with using a concealer as an eyeshadow base, you have to remember that it will most likely crease. So just keep that in mind, because I am going to lay eyeshadows on top of this, but just keep in mind that it most likely will indeed crease over time. I'm also taking that concealer upwards towards like the sides of my nose here, because I always struggle with getting foundation in this general area, so that's another reason why I apply a lot of concealer in this general area, so that way I can take some of it there to help ensure that I'm going to get coverage in that particular area. You could also use your fingers to blend out these edges if you wanted to. I just personally like using a brush for doing this part, because I find that if I use my fingers, I wind up emphasizing texture in some places, because like I keep saying, I have very dry skin. If you wanted to, you could take a black pencil liner and run it through the waterline if you wanted to. I generally don't like putting any liners through my waterlines that often. Usually whenever I do, it's generally a bright pencil liner that I like to put on there, or something that has like color to it. I'm not the biggest fan of using a black pencil liner. I do occasionally if I'm doing like a look that really requires it, but this look doesn't necessarily warrant it, so we're not going to use it. For the bottom lid, what we're going to be using are a combination of these three shades here. So Bonnie, Marnie, and Nancy. So I'm going to pick up this brush first. This is just a flat push liner brush here, and I'm going to pick up the shade Nancy. And I'm going to run this along the bottom lid and the lash line. Mainly focusing it, though, at the lash line. Now, this is actually something that I'm testing out today for the first time. I'm laying down the darker shade first, and then I'm going to blend it out with a lighter shade. I'm testing this out. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to work out the way that I want it to, but we're going to try it out. So, if you noticed, I didn't take this color all the way into that inner portion of the eye. I do this because whenever I highlight my inner corners, I actually bring it down into this lower tear duct area. It just helps to enlarge the eye ever so slightly, and it just winds up looking better on my eye shape than if I were to take this all the way in. Because if you take it all the way in, you wind up closing off the eye. This is another reason why I don't like putting black pencil liner in the waterline as well, because as you can see, the eyes look so much open right now, and that's because we have that waterline exposed. Another way to really help ensure that the waterline stays exposed and the eye stays bright is that you can either use a nude pencil liner or a white pencil liner. I'm going to take Bonnie on this brush here. This is a Real Techniques shading brush, and it's just a pinched ferrule fluffy brush that's very densely packed. And I'm just going to take that Bonnie shade. I'm just going to run this on top of Nancy. Now this shade I will take further in. Just that darker shade I'm not going to take in that much. Now, as you can see, it is blending that darker shade inwards, but it's nowhere near as harsh this way as it would have been if I were to have gone just straight in with that Nancy shade all the way in. It's okay to blend it in there. Just don't directly apply it there. Now I'm going to take a clean blending brush here, and I'm just going to go along the edges. You don't necessarily need to do this. I just like to do this just to make sure that the edges are nice and clean and smooth. Now I'm going to pick up the shade Hermione. I cannot pronounce her name. Hermione? I can't pronounce her name. It's such a struggle for me because of my southern accent. But you know the bitch from Harry Potter, Emma Watson's character. Her. And I'm just going to pick that up on this smaller, like pencil-shaped blending brush here. And we're going to pop this in the inner corner of the eye. Now the shade can go on quite sheer, but it can also be built up. I like bringing my inner corner highlights down here into this portion because it just looks really nice and helps to open up my eyes more. Now you don't necessarily need to do this step. I'm going to do it because I like having a brow bone highlight. So I'm actually going to dip into this guy here. I've been using this palette for mirror. This is the KVD Alchemist palette. I don't know if it's showing up well or not in the viewfinder. I can't tell. But I'm going to take the shade Green Emerald here. They all look white on the viewfinder, but trust me, they are definitely different in tone. I'm going to pick it up on this pencil brush here. And just going to apply this onto my brow bone underneath the tails of the brows. And outwards towards the edge here. You can also take that green emerald shade and pop that in the inner corners as well if you wanted to. I just like the contrast with the gold in there because it just adds like an extra fun touch. But if you're interested in this palette, it is still available on Sephora. And it's still on sale on Sephora for $10, which is how I got it. And since Kat Von Measles is no longer associated with the brand, you won't be supporting her. You'll just be getting products that they're working on phasing out, it seems. The moisturizer has had plenty of time to absorb into the skin. And so now we're ready to pop on some foundation. But before we do that, I'm going to pop on a little bit of lip balm. I forgot to do this earlier, so I'm just going to pop on just a little bit right now. For foundation, I'm going to be using the Limitless foundation from Stellar Beauty. I think this foundation might be getting phased out of Sephora, because they don't have a lot of shades left available. Like, this was the last one that they had in this shade. I believe it was the last one that they had in this shade, which is L06. I do like this foundation, and I'm mad that I like this foundation because it's being phased out of Sephora and it might be getting discontinued. And if it's getting discontinued, I'm going to be so sad because I really like this foundation. And I'm just going to put a single pump here on this Bath & Body Works candle lid. I like putting like foundation and other like products that need to be like laid out on the back of your hand, generally on like a palette, just simply because you wind up wasting less product. Because I mean, especially when it comes to like things like foundation, because your skin winds up absorbing product, so you wind up having to use a lot more product. And I'm just applying this using a Real Techniques complexion sponge. I'm just dotting the foundation in areas where I know I need some coverage, and then going over those areas with the sponge to blend it out. And if I need more coverage in some areas, like I know I'm going to need more coverage on the top of my nose and around my nose, then I'll add more foundation there. But in the areas where I don't need a lot of coverage, I'll just blend out whatever I have placed in that general area and leave it be. Which is why I like this foundation. This foundation just has such lovely coverage. And it just looks so good on my biscuit skin. And I save my forehead for last because I do make a lot of weird faces while I am applying foundation. So I save my forehead for last so that way it's not like bunching up and creasing too much during the application. And I try not to apply too much foundation into the areas where my facial hair is at, but I still make sure to run product through those parts. Because I mean, my skin is still noticeable through my facial hair. I might have to take another half pump because I'm needing to build up just a little bit of coverage in some spots in here because my eczema is breaking out a little bit. I'm just going to go over that just to color it up ever so slightly more. And notice how I am stippling the foundation onto the skin. Doing it this way helps to ensure that you're getting the most coverage out of your foundation, or if you're blending out concealer, pouncing it on is going to ensure that you're going to keep and maintain the coverage. If you swipe it on, it's going to thin out the coverage. So here we have the foundation. It looks so good. I love this foundation so much. It just looks so good on my skin. I really hope that they're not discontinuing this foundation because so far of all the foundations I have tried, this one is my favorite because it looks like my skin. And it just evens things out so beautifully. And just, it looks so good. And honestly, I kind of want to just leave it like this. Because I really do like the base, how it's looking right now. And you know what? I think I will leave it like this. I will add some highlight, but I'm not going to add any blush or bronzer today. If I was using products that were a little bit fuller in coverage, then I would go in with a bronzer and a blush. Originally, my plan today were to use these two Milk mini items here. We have the Lip and Cheek in the shade Work. This mauvey, rosy type of color. I've tried using it on my lips before, and it does not look good on the lips. So cheeks is where that product will stay. And this is the matte bronzer in Baked, which this is the only one that comes in the minis. I don't know if the blushes come in other shades in the minis, but I know that the bronzer only comes in this one shade in the mini version. So just keep that in mind. Oh, I forgot to do mascara again. I keep forgetting to do mascara when it comes to my eye makeup, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is the Milk Makeup Kush Mascara. I'm only going to apply this to my top lashes. I've really been enjoying the look of just having mascara on my top lashes lately. I mean, sometimes like a look just like benefits from having mascara on the bottom lashes. But sometimes it's just nice to not have any mascara on those bottom lashes. My eyelashes grow in really strange, as you will see once this mascara is on my lashes. I really need to get an eyelash curler to help them out. Now for highlighter, I'm actually going to go into this guy again, but I'm going to pick up just a very, very, very light amount of product. And I'm just going to blend green emerald in with pink opal here. I'm just going to take a small amount of each of them. So applying a very sheer amount. I don't know what is up with this brush. Sometimes it picks up a lot of highlighter, and sometimes it just doesn't pick up anything. Now while I'm applying my highlight to my face, I'll explain why I like using cream bronzers and blushes more than I do powders. So I've noticed that I like my base better when I use cream blush and bronzers, just simply because I think powder blush and bronzers tend to just go on a little bit weird onto my skin. Not that they look bad, it's just that I wind up having to work with my skin a lot more if I use powders over creams. I'm trying to get out of like putting a lot of highlighter down the center of my face. Because I'm trying to like wean myself off of using a lot of highlighter. I'm trying to get myself into like using a lot less makeup on my face in general. Now with mixing that green and the pink together, it's going to like make it, it's going to add just a little bit of color to the skin, because since like pink and green will kind of sort of neutralize one another, it'll make it go more so like a icy pale color instead of it being like just stark green or stark pink. So, I mean, these have like a very strong white base to them. I mean, on camera they just look white. For lips, I have 3 options. So the first option that I have here is a ABH lipstick, and this is in the shade Peachy. I had to depot the lipsticks because one of them broke on me, so I went ahead and depotted the other ones because they were minis. I was scared that they would all break on me because they are very like dry type of formula. The other option that I have in mind, which I don't think I'm actually going to go through with using, is the KVD Static Kiss lipstick in the shade Greige, which is you guessed it, a greige. It could probably work with this look, but I think that it would just not suit it very well. And then another option that I have here is this Tarte Sugar Coat Velvet Liquid Lipstick and Cake Pop. And this was one of their Sugar Rush items that they have available on Ulta, and it's just like a pinky type of nude. I'm actually going to try this guy out. I haven't used this guy before, so I think I'm going to start out with using this guy and see how I like it. If I think that it goes well with this look, then we'll just keep it as is, but if not, then I'll go in with Peachy. I think it's just a little too pink for this look. So instead, we're going to use Peachy. So since this is a depotted lipstick, I have to apply this using a brush. When you're using like lipsticks and applying them with a brush, make sure that you're applying them with a brush kind of like this, where it's like a finer tipped shader brush type of brush. I mean, yeah, you can go out and like buy yourself like a pre-made lip brush, but if you don't have one, just try to see if you have a brush like this and go for it. And I always make sure to go around the lip line first, and then I fill in the area. I mean, this is how I generally fill in my lips when I'm using a liquid lipstick as well. Like, I go around the line and then fill in everything else. But it's even more important when you're filling in your lips with a lip brush. I think I might just put on a teeny tiny amount of blush. Since I don't want to go in with anything that's going to be like super noticeable, I'm just going to use a neutral tone blush. So for that, I'm going to use this blush by Pixie, and this is in the shade Beach Rose. Let's see. And I'm just going to pick it up on this angled face brush here. Tap off the excess. And I'm just going to lightly dab this on to the cheeks. I go up in like this type of motion because when you use blush is actually a way of like adding shape to the face. So go in and apply your blush in a direction that you want to lift your face. So for me, I always smile so that way I can see like the fat of my cheeks, because generally the direction that the fat of my cheeks go in is generally the direction that I want my blush to go in. I just pick up a tiny amount of blush, tap off the excess, and then I pat the brush on my hand to get rid of any extra bit of product, so that way I can go in with as little amount of blush as possible, because I just want like a very soft amount onto the cheeks. And this method can also be applied for using powder bronzer as well, because I find myself whenever I use like powder blush and powder bronzer, it's very easy for me to go overboard with it. So doing just a very light amount of it when using powders and everything is a good thing for me to do. And to finish off the look, I'm going to pop on some setting spray. This is the NYX Dewy setting spray. This is the old packaging. I've had this bottle for a very, very long time, but I'm almost out of it. So I'm just going to spray my whole face. Hey guys, Editing Patrick here. I forgot to mention this in the video, so I wanted to go ahead and clarify it now, but I do not set my face after I put on foundation because I am dry as a biscuit. If you have very, very dry skin, you don't necessarily need to set your foundation unless you feel as if you absolutely need to. Me, I haven't set my foundation in several years, and my foundation always winds up looking fine afterwards, and it actually looks better when I don't set my foundation with powder. That's why I just use a setting spray. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there for you guys. So let's go ahead and get back to the video. I know I mentioned before I only wear makeup for like photos and videos, so using a setting spray for me might seem like a bit redundant, but it just helps to melt powders into the skin better. And it also just makes the base look nicer because this is a dewy finish. So it's going to help add some extra like juiciness, shine, and dew to the skin. And also, as you can see, it makes the highlighter a little bit more noticeable as well. But this is the final look. Like I mentioned, we went for like this smoky green eye type of look today. Paired it up with like a nude lip, and then just went for a very, very soft base. But I love going for a soft base. Actually, one last tip for those of you who have facial hair, just remember this. I'm going to take this large spoolie. Technically, this is a hair mascara wand, but I use it as a face spoolie because it's so large. And I'm just going to comb this through my facial hair. Make sure that there's no product caught up in it. So yeah, a little fun tip for you guys out there with beards and you get foundation caught up in it, just take a spoolie. I'm glad that I actually went in and added that soft amount of blush because it just like brings the face together a little bit more, and like I mentioned earlier, it does add some like structure and shape to it as well. So what did you guys think of this tutorial? I know I don't do in-depth tutorials hardly ever, so should I do more of these more in-depth tutorials in the future, or should I just do like tutorials in general more often? I do want to like redo some like older makeup looks that I did way back in the day and just redo them because I know I can do them a lot better now in present day. So I'll probably do like updated tutorials on those. I might just do them in like get ready with me style videos. I don't know. We'll figure that out once we get there. What do you guys think of this look? What do you guys think of this hair? We're still rocking that Skittle life with this bright as fuck pink hair. But until I see you guys in my next video, whatever the hell that may be, goodbye.